The great hall of the Galactic conclave sparkled with light reflected from 1,000 worlds. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings so high they disappeared into shadow. The walls glowed with living murals showing the history of space travel across the galaxy. In the center stood the famous Great Table, an enormous structure carved from rare black stone, polished until it shone like dark water. Commander Elena Reyes walked into the hall with her back straight and her face calm. She was the 43rd human to represent Earth at the conclave. Though humans had only joined 27 years ago, they had quickly made a place for themselves among the stars. Elena wore the blue and silver uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Her dark hair was pulled back neatly, and her brown eyes missed nothing as she took her seat. Unlike many representatives who needed special chairs, breathing equipment, or temperature controls, Elena could sit at the table just as she was. Humans were among the few species comfortable in standard gravity and atmosphere. The 327th session of the Galactic Conclave is now in session, announced the speaker, a tall being with blue skin and 6 arms. We welcome all 217 species to this sacred space of peace and understanding. Elena nodded politely to the representatives seated near her. To her left was Ambassador Tulok of the Hadari, a bird-like species with bright feathers and sharp eyes. To her right sat Representative Mool, whose body was mostly water held together by a thin membrane. Both had been friendly to humans in past meetings. The first hours of the meeting were boring but important. Trade agreements between distant systems, permissions for scientific studies on shared worlds, and updates on space traffic control. Elena spoke twice, once to support the Hadari's request for mining rights in an empty system, and once to explain Earth's new pollution control methods. Many of the older species had been surprised by humans over the years. When Earth first joined the conclave, everyone expected trouble. Humans were known to be curious, aggressive, and quick to act. The elder species, those who had been traveling among the stars for thousands of years, thought humans would be difficult and dangerous. Instead, Elena and those before her had shown humans could be reasonable and helpful. They shared medical discoveries, offered fair trade deals, and followed the rules of space. Elena was especially good at finding compromises that made everyone happy. Our next matter, said the speaker, comes from the Jrel Imperium regarding the human colony program. Elena sat up straighter. The Jrel were not friends of humanity. They were silicon-based life forms from the edge of the galaxy. Hard, crystalline beings with deep voices and cold logic. They had been in space for over 10,000 years and saw newer species as children to be controlled. Ambassador Kale of the Jrel rose from his seat. His body glittered with embedded gems that showed his high rank. When he moved, a sound like small bells filled the air. Honorable representatives, he said, his voice deep and rumbling. The Jrel Imperium brings serious charges against the humans of Earth. A large screen appeared above the table, showing a rocky planet with strange crystal formations covering its surface. The image zoomed in to show large machines and small buildings. This is Proxima Centauri 7, said Kael. A world specifically protected by our treaties due to its unique crystal ecosystem. Yet here we see human terraforming equipment and the beginnings of a colony. Gasps and murmurs spread around the table. Elena frowned. Earth had no colony on Proxima Centauri 7. She had personally signed the agreement to leave that world untouched. The footage clearly shows Earth equipment with your planet's markings, continued Kale. The timestamps show this colony has been growing for 3 months. Elena stood. The Earth Diplomatic Corps denies these charges completely. We have no colony on Proxima Centauri 7 and have respected all treaty boundaries. I request time to investigate these claims and present our evidence. The evidence is before your eyes, said Kale, his crystal body flashing with light. Humans lack the discipline for membership in this ancient body. They promise to follow our ways, yet they break our most sacred rules. Elena studied the images carefully. The equipment did look like Earth's standard models, but something wasn't right about how it was arranged. And the timestamps seemed odd. The lighting didn't change between images supposedly taken days apart. I formally request 48 hours to investigate these claims, Elena said, as is my right under conclave law. The speaker looked around, the table. All in favor of granting the human representative time to investigate? Elena expected many hands to rise. Earth had built good relationships with most species, but only a few voted to give her time. Most representatives looked away, unwilling to meet her eyes. The motion is denied, said the speaker. The conclave will vote on sanctions against Earth immediately. Elena couldn't believe what she was hearing. Even accused criminals got time to defend themselves. Something was very wrong. If the conclave refuses humanity basic fairness, she said, her voice clear and strong, then humanity refuses the conclave. The hall went completely silent. Elena reached up and removed her translator device, then unpinned the silver emblem of the conclave from her uniform. She placed both items on the black stone table. Earth joined this body in good faith, she said. We believed in its principles of justice and cooperation. If those principles no longer exist, neither does our membership. Then Elena did what no species had done in the 1,000-year history of the conclave. She turned her back on the great table and walked away. Behind her, chaos erupted. Representatives shouted and argued. Some called for her to be stopped. Others demanded to know why the investigation had been denied. As Elena reached the huge doorway, she glanced back once. Through the confusion, she saw Ambassador Kale of the Jrel. Despite the noise and panic, he looked perfectly calm, and on his crystalline face was what appeared to be a smile. In Earth's embassy building, Elena went straight to the secure communication room. She sent a single message to Admiral Jackson Chen aboard the Earth flagship. Thunder before the storm. Itang was the code phrase they had created years ago, hoping they would never need to use it. It meant, the conclave has failed us. Activate the contingency plan. As she waited for confirmation, Elena looked out the window at the beautiful conclave world with its 3 moons rising in the purple sky. She had truly believed in the promise of the Galactic conclave. Species, working together, learning from each other, building a peaceful future among the stars. Sometimes, she whispered to herself, the only way to save a dream is to wake up first. Admiral Jackson Chen stood perfectly still as he watched the encrypted message from Elena appear on his private screen. The 5 words glowed blue against the black background. Thunder before the storm. He had hoped never to see this code phrase. The bridge of the EFS Defiant was quiet. The flagship of Earth's fleet hung in space near Jupiter, hidden from most scanning technology by the gas giant's powerful magnetic field. The ship itself was impressive, nearly a kilometer long with sleek lines and powerful engines. But what made it special couldn't be seen from the outside. Jackson sighed and pressed his hand against the scanner beside the screen. The computer confirmed his identity and opened a new communication channel to all Earth military installations across the solar system. This is Admiral Chen, he said calmly. Sentinel protocol is now active. Authorization code, Phoenix Rising. This is not a drill. Commander Prisha Varma, his second-in-command, stepped closer. She was tall with dark skin and serious eyes. Her uniform was perfectly pressed, and her black hair was cut short in the standard military style. They moved faster than we predicted, Jackson said quietly. Prisha nodded. The Jrel must have been planning this for months. How bad was it? According to Elena's full report, they created fake evidence of a human colony on a protected world. When she asked for time to investigate, the conclave denied her request. That's against their own rules, Prisha said with a frown. Exactly. Too many species voted against us. The Jrel have been busy making alliances. Jackson turned to face the main view screen. Elena made the right call by walking away. Should we go get her? Prisha asked. Jackson shook his head. No. She has her own escape plan. We need to focus on the bigger picture now. All around them, the bridge came alive as officers received the Sentinel protocol activation. No one panicked. No one seemed surprised. They had trained for this day, hoping it would never come. Status updates coming in, Admiral, reported Lieutenant Kim from the communications station. All Sol system installations acknowledge Sentinel. Protocol defensive systems are powering up. Jackson nodded. Show me Mars first. The main screen changed to show the red planet. At first it looked normal. Then the surface began to change. Huge sections of the ground slid open, revealing deep spaces underneath. From these hidden hangars, ships began to rise. Hundreds of them military vessels that no alien surveillance had ever detected. The Ares fleet is reporting ready, sir, said Lieutenant Kim. All 342 ships powered and crewed. Next, the asteroid belt. The view changed again. The asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter looked like a scattered ring of rocks. But as they watched, many of the larger asteroids began to move in ways natural rocks shouldn't. Hidden engines fired, changing their positions. Metal panels opened, revealing weapon systems and communication arrays. Belt Defense Network online, Admiral. All 189 platforms report combat ready. Jackson smiled slightly. And now Earth? The blue planet appeared on screen. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, in carefully chosen locations around the globe, the oceans began to bubble. Enormous structures rose from the depths, defense platforms that had been hidden under the waves for years. In the mountains, hidden doors opened to reveal missile systems and sensor arrays. Earth defense grid at 100%, sir. All 27 underwater platforms and 42 mountain installations report ready. Prisha checked her tablet. Admiral, we're getting requests for instructions from civilian populations on all colonies. The emergency broadcast system has informed everyone about Sentinel protocol. Tell them to continue normal operations but be ready to evacuate to designated shelters on 1 hour's notice, Jackson ordered. No panic, no public announcements that might be intercepted. The truth was both simple and complicated. Humans had never fully trusted the Galactic Conclave. When Earth joined the interstellar community 27 years ago, they had been excited but cautious. While Elena and other diplomats worked honestly for peace, Earth's military and scientific leaders had prepared for the possibility of betrayal. Status of Project Prometheus? Jackson asked quietly. Prisha checked a special channel on her tablet, one that required her personal biometric data to access. Europa Base reports the Prometheus engine is ready for activation on your command. Jackson nodded. This was their greatest secret. Beneath the ice of Jupiter's moon Europa, scientists had built something that no other species in the galaxy had managed to create. The Prometheus engine was the result of humanity's unique way of thinking, a combination of creativity, desperation, and the strange human ability to make impossible leaps of logic. A new alert flashed on the main screen. Lieutenant Kim looked up with concern. Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting multiple ships entering the Sol system. Jrel energy signatures confirmed. How many? Jackson asked. Initial count is over 300 capital ships, sir, and more appearing by the minute. Some officers on the bridge looked nervous now. The Jrel were one of the oldest and most powerful species in the Conclave. Their technology was centuries ahead of Earth's, at least, ahead of what Earth had publicly shown. They think we left the table because we're emotional and impulsive, Jackson said, loud enough for everyone to hear. They think we're unprepared and vulnerable now that we've given up Conclave protection. He stepped forward, standing tall in the center of the bridge. What they don't understand is that humanity has survived and thrived because we never put all our trust in anyone else. We hope for the best but prepare for the worst. He turned to Prisha. Commander Varma, send the fleet deployment orders. Pattern Omega-3. Yes, sir. Prisha moved quickly to the tactical station. Lieutenant Kim, open a channel to Europa Base. Tell them to bring the Prometheus engine to full power. Right away, Admiral. Jackson looked at the screen showing the approaching Jrel fleet. They were coming in fast, confident in their superior numbers and technology. They expected to find humans scrambling in confusion after their sudden exit from the Conclave. Instead, they would find that leaving the diplomatic table had been part of a careful plan, one that humanity had hoped never to use but had always kept ready. They think we left the table because we're impulsive, Jackson said quietly to himself. They don't understand that sometimes leaving the table is the most calculated move of all. Around the solar system, humanity's hidden strength was revealing itself. Ships formed into battle groups, defense platforms locked onto approaching targets. The Prometheus engine hummed to life beneath Europa's icy surface. And on a small transport ship speeding away from the Conclave homeworld, Elena Reyes watched the stars and thought about the future. She had done her part. Now it was time for humanity to show the galaxy who they really were. Not just clever diplomats, but survivors. Not just peaceful explorers, but protectors. Not just the newest species at the Galactic Conclave, but perhaps the most dangerous when threatened. The storm was coming, and humanity was ready. Ambassador Kyle stood proudly on the command deck of the Jrel flagship, the Crystal Hammer. The massive vessel led a fleet of over 300 ships toward the Tau Ceti system, home to humanity's largest colony outside of Sol. His crystalline body glittered under the bright lights of the command center, and the gems embedded in his form, symbols of his rank and achievements, sparkled with every movement. Supreme Commander Kyle, one of his officers said using his new title. The fleet is in position and awaiting your orders. Kale enjoyed the sound of his new rank. The Jrel Imperium had rewarded him handsomely for successfully removing the humans from the Galactic Conclave. In just one clever move, he had eliminated a troublesome young species that asked too many questions and challenged too many traditions. Put the tactical display on the main screen, Kyle ordered. The large screen lit up, showing the Tau Ceti system. The fourth planet, Tau Ceti Prime, glowed blue and green, a successful human colony with over 2 million inhabitants. Around it were defense satellites and a small patrol fleet, nothing that could stand against the might of the Jrel Armada. Open a channel to all ships, Kyle said. When the communication officer nodded, he addressed his fleet. Warriors of the Jrel Imperium, today we begin the rightful punishment of the humans for their violations of Conclave law. Their technology is primitive, their ships are few, and without Conclave protection, they stand alone. The Jrel officers around him nodded in agreement. They had studied human warfare and found it limited. Humans relied on simple weapons, conventional physics, and predictable strategies. The Jrel had been conquering worlds for thousands of years before humanity had even left their home planet. Our first target is Tau Ceti Prime, Kale continued. We will disable their defenses, establish control of the planet, and then move on to their other colonies. Within days, all human worlds except Earth itself will be under our control. He didn't mention his true goal, to capture human scientists who might know something about the mysterious energy readings that Jrel spies had detected near Jupiter. Something strange was happening in the Sol system, and Kale wanted to know what it was before his fleet arrived there. Supreme Commander, called the sensor officer, we are detecting multiple ships leaving the human colony. They appear to be civilian transports. Kyle watched the screen as dozens of large vessels rose from Tau Ceti Prime, filled with what he assumed were frightened human colonists trying to escape. They flee before we even attack, he said with satisfaction. This shows the weakness in their species. Humans lack the courage to stand and fight when faced with superior force. The transport ships moved away from the planet, heading toward the edge of the system in a disorganized manner. Should we pursue and capture the transports? Supreme Commander? Asked his second-in-command. Kale considered this. Taking human hostages might be useful. Yes. Send the 3rd Division to intercept and capture those vessels. Use minimal force. We want the humans alive for questioning. 40 Jrel warships broke away from the main fleet and changed course to pursue the fleeing transports. On the EOA's tactical display, Kyle watched as his ships closed in on the slower human vessels. Then something unexpected happened. The human ships suddenly stopped their retreat. They turned around and accelerated toward the pursuing Jrel ships at speeds that seemed impossible for transport vessels. Supreme Commander! The sensor officer called out in alarm. Those are not standard engines on those ships. Energy readings are off the scale. Before Kale could respond, the transport ships revealed their true nature. Their outer hulls fell away, showing sleek, powerful vessels underneath. Each contained what the sensors identified as miniaturized gravity well generators, technology that the humans had publicly claimed was still theoretical and years away from practical use. The Jrel fleet had no time to react. The human ships activated their gravity generators, creating localized distortions in space. Jrel warships were pulled off course, their carefully calibrated navigation systems confused by the sudden changes in gravity. At the same time, seemingly, empty areas of space lit up as hidden platforms decloaked. These stealth stations had been invisible to Jrel sensors, and now they launched their weapons, simple metal rods accelerated to near-light speed. These kinetic projectiles required no explosive power. At such velocities, the energy of impact alone was devastating. The Jrel shields had been designed to block energy weapons, lasers, plasma, and particle beams. They were not calibrated for physical objects moving at relativistic speeds. The kinetic projectiles passed through the shields as if they weren't there, and tore through the hulls of the Jrel ships. "Evasive action," Kale shouted as he watched the tactical display in horror. 27 of his ships disappeared from the screen in the first minute, destroyed or disabled. "Return fire. Target those platforms." But the human trap was too well planned. As the remaining Jrel ships tried to fire on the platforms, more kinetic projectiles streaked through space. 60 more Jrel vessels were hit, their systems failing as the high-speed projectiles caused catastrophic damage. "Supreme, Commander, we cannot maintain formation," reported his second-in-command. "The human weapons are bypassing our shields, and their gravity generators are disrupting our targeting systems." Kyle couldn't believe what was happening. This primitive species, barely a century into space travel, had somehow created an ambush that was decimating his fleet. How had they hidden these capabilities? How had they prepared such an elaborate trap? "Order all ships to retreat," he said, his crystalline form dimming slightly with the shame of defeat. "We must regroup and reconsider our approach." As the surviving Jrel ships altered course and fled the Tau Ceti system, Kale stared at the tactical display in disbelief. They had lost nearly a third of their fleet without landing a single effective blow against the humans. Back at the Galactic Conclave, representatives from all 2I-17 spacefaring civilizations watched the battle in stunned silence. The Conclave maintained observation satellites in all major systems, and the footage from Tau Ceti was being transmitted live to the Great Hall. The ancient Orvex representative, a being who had lived through 3 centuries of galactic politics, spoke first. His voice, thin but clear, echoed through the silent chamber. "It appears we have gravely misunderstood humanity's capabilities, and perhaps their patience as well." Many representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They had voted to deny Helena Reyes's request for time to investigate the Jrel accusations. They had watched her leave the great table without protest, and now they were seeing the consequences of that decision. "Could it be?" asked the Hadari ambassador with his bird-like voice, "that the humans abandoned the table not out of anger or impulsiveness, but as part of a strategy?" No one answered him. But as they continued to watch the remains of the Jrel fleet retreat from Tau Ceti, many began to wonder what other surprises the young human species might have prepared. And on the crystal hammer, Supreme Commander Kale gripped the edge of his command console with such force that small cracks appeared in his crystalline fingers. This was not over. He would return to Jrel space, gather a larger fleet, and bring more powerful weapons. The humans would pay for this humiliation. But first, he needed to understand how they had become so dangerous without anyone noticing. Talia Zor, the Medusan diplomat, stood at the viewport of the conclave diplomatic vessel. Her large compound eyes reflected the blue-green curve of Earth below. The ship had entered Earth orbit after a tense journey through human-controlled space, where they had been closely monitored but not harmed. "It's beautiful," she said softly. Her translator converted her natural clicking speech into standard conclave language. Hard to believe such a troubled species came from such a peaceful-looking world. Behind her, 5 other diplomats from different species waited nervously. The Conclave had sent them to Earth to assess the situation after the shocking defeat of the Drell fleet at Tau Ceti. The diplomats had been carefully chosen, all from species known for their fairness and calm judgment. "Look there," said Representative Gorm, pointing a tentacle toward Earth's orbit. "What are those structures?" Talia focused her compound eyes on the area he indicated. Enormous vessels were under construction in Earth orbit, far larger than military ships. They looked like small cities in space with vast living sections, gardens visible under transparent domes, and massive engine systems. "Those are not warships," said Talia. "They appear to be colony ships, arcs?" Their pilot, a Trinaxian with 6 limbs and remarkable coordination, looked up from the controls. "I'm receiving a transmission from Earth. We've been cleared to land at their diplomatic center in a place called Geneva. Our guide will be Defense Minister Elena Reyes." Talia's inner eyelids blinked in surprise. "The same Elena Reyes who left the table?" "Yes," confirmed the pilot. "She has apparently been promoted." As their ship descended toward Earth, they saw more signs of unusual activity. Military bases were busy with movement, and in several locations, large crowds of people appeared to be practicing evacuation drills. Yet there was no sense of panic. Everything seemed organized and purposeful. The diplomatic vessel landed on a pad near a cluster of elegant buildings surrounded by mountains. Elena Reyes waited for them, wearing a formal uniform with new insignia showing her higher rank. Her face was calm and professional as she greeted each diplomat. "Welcome to Earth," she said. "I appreciate your willingness to come here, especially given recent events." Talia stepped forward. "The Conclave thanks you for receiving us, Defense Minister. We have many questions about humanity's intentions." Elena nodded. "And we will answer them honestly. Please follow me." She led them through a series of security checkpoints and into a large conference room with windows overlooking a lake. On one wall was a detailed map of the galaxy, with human territories highlighted in blue. "The Conclave sent you because they expect to find us preparing for war," Elena said once they were seated. "I imagine they think we left the table because we wanted to fight without the constraints of Conclave rules." "That is partially correct," admitted Talia. "Your display of military technology at Tau Ceti was concerning to many species." Elena smiled slightly. "What happened at Tau Ceti was defensive, not offensive. The Drell attacked us. We defended ourselves using capabilities we had kept private, for good reason, as recent events have shown." She pressed a button, and the wall screens changed to show images of the massive vessels they had seen in orbit. "These are not warships," Elena explained. "They are arc ships, designed for long-term, self-sustaining travel and habitation. Each can carry up to 100,000 humans and maintain a complete ecosystem indefinitely." "You're leaving?" asked Representative Gorm, his tentacles curling in surprise. "We're creating options," Elena corrected. "Which brings me to what you really need to see." She led them to a smaller room where a strange device sat on a table. It was a sphere about the size of a human head, glowing with soft blue light and surrounded by floating holographic equations. "This is a miniature model of the Prometheus engine," Elena said. "The full-sized version is operational beneath the ice of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons." Talia moved closer, her compound eyes analyzing the device. "What does it do?" "It creates stable wormholes," Elena said simply. "It allows us to travel beyond the mapped territories of the Conclave, to regions of space no current species has explored." The room fell silent as the diplomats processed this information. Wormhole technology had been theorized by many species but never successfully implemented. The power requirements and mathematical complexity had proven too challenging. How did you develop this?" asked the Volith representative, his fur standing on end with excitement. "No species has managed to create stable wormholes." "That's not entirely true," Elena said. "The Drell came close about 2,000 years ago, according to our research, but they abandoned the project because their approach hit a mathematical wall they couldn't solve." She touched the model, and the holographic equations expanded to fill the room. Humans took a different approach. Where the Jrel tried to force space to bend according to their equations, we looked for patterns in how space naturally folds and unfolds. Our mathematicians found a different solution because they asked different questions. Talia studied the equations with growing amazement. With this technology, you could reach any system in the galaxy within days instead of years. You could establish colonies beyond anyone's reach. We could have dominated the conclave. Elena finished for her. Yes. If we had revealed this technology even a year ago, Earth would have instantly become one of the most powerful forces in galactic politics. Why reveal it now when you're leaving? Asked Talia, her compound eyes fixed on Elena's face. Elena's answer was direct and simple. Because domination was never our goal, Ambassador Zor. Cooperation was. We joined the conclave hoping to be part of a genuine community of species working together. What we found instead was a system where older species like the Jrel could manipulate the rules to target younger ones. She walked back to the main conference room, the diplomats following her. On the screens now were images showing evidence of how the Jrel had systematically undermined multiple species through the conclave's own bureaucracy. The footage of human violations on Proxima Centauri 7 had been fabricated, timestamps altered, equipment planted. We didn't abandon the table to fight, Elena explained. We abandoned it because we recognized it no longer served its purpose. The conclave had become a tool for species like the Jrel to control others. And now you plan to leave completely? Asked Talia. Elena looked out the window at the beautiful Earth landscape. We've decided on another path. There are unmapped regions of the galaxy where we can establish a different kind of community. One built on genuine cooperation, rather than power politics. She turned back to face the diplomats. The arcs will be ready within 6 months. Any humans who wish to go may do so. Some will stay here, of course. Earth is our home. But we're offering our people a choice. Talia moved closer to the window, her tall form reflected in the glass. This changes everything, she whispered. With this wormhole technology, humans could have blackmailed the entire conclave. You could have demanded anything you wanted in exchange for sharing it. Elena smiled. Perhaps that reveals the difference between the Jrel approach and the human one, Ambassador. We don't want to rule or control. We just want to find a place where we can live according to our values. And what if the conclave wished to reform? Asked Talia. What if there were species who shared your vision of genuine cooperation? Then perhaps our departure doesn't have to be permanent, Elena replied. The future is not fixed, Ambassador. Zor, we're simply creating new possibilities. As the diplomatic meeting continued into the evening, messages flew across the galaxy. The revelation of the Prometheus engine shocked the conclave to its core. Many species that had dismissed humans as primitive now reassessed everything they thought they knew about the young species from Earth. And in the ice caverns beneath Europa's surface, the full-sized Prometheus engine hummed with power, opening a window to parts of the galaxy no conclave species had ever seen. Supreme Commander Kale stood before the Crystal Council, the 7 highest leaders of the Jrel Imperium. Their chamber was deep within the capital world of Jrelion, a place few outsiders had ever seen. The walls were made of living crystal that pulsed with light, and the floor was polished stone that reflected the council members like a mirror. Kyle's normally bright crystalline body was dim with shame. The defeat at Tau Ceti had damaged his reputation severely. You promised an easy victory over the humans, said First Elder Vex, the oldest and most powerful of the council. Instead, you lost 90 vessels and achieved nothing. The humans had hidden capabilities, Kyle replied, trying to keep his voice steady. They tricked us with false transports and used weapons our shields could not block. Excuses, hissed Third Elder Mox. The humans are barely a century into space travel. They should have been simple to defeat without conclave protection. Kale straightened his posture, the gems embedded in his form catching the light. I have a new plan that cannot fail. The conclave diplomatic team has discovered that humans have developed wormhole technology. They plan to leave known space entirely. This news caused the council chamber to fill with the sound of crystal chiming as the elders shifted in surprise. Wormhole technology was something the Jrel had sought for thousands of years without success. "We must strike immediately," Kylie continued, "before they can escape. I propose a direct attack on Earth itself. Our remaining fleet, enhanced with forbidden weapons from our secret arsenals, can overwhelm their defenses." The council was silent for a long moment. Using forbidden weapons, technology banned by conclave treaties, was a serious step. "If you fail again," said First Elder Vex finally, "the penalty will be shattering." This was the highest punishment. For a Jrel, to have one's crystalline body broken into pieces and scattered across different worlds. "I understand, First Elder," Kale said with a bow. "I will not fail." 2 days later, Kale stood on the command deck of a new flagship, the Crystal Vengeance. Around him, a fleet of 200 ships prepared to jump to the Sol system. In the weapons bay of each vessel were devices that had not been used in open warfare for centuries, antimatter bombs capable of devastating entire continents. "The humans think they can simply walk away from the galactic community," he told his officers. "They will learn that no one escapes the judgment of the Jrel Imperium." At the Galactic Conclave, news of the Jrel fleet's movements caused an emergency session to be called. Representatives gathered at the Great Table to debate whether to intervene. "The humans abandoned their seat," argued the representative from Volox Prime. "They deserve no protection from us." "But the Jrel are using forbidden weapons," countered Ambassador Tulok of the Hadari. "If we allow this, what message does it send to all species?" While the debate continued, the Medusan diplomat Talia Zor sent an urgent warning to Earth. Her compound eyes watched the voting indicators with concern. The conclave was divided, with slightly more species arguing against intervention. In Earth orbit, Admiral Jackson Chen received Talia's message while supervising final preparations for the Ark ships. 3 of the massive vessels were nearly complete, their systems being tested for the long journey through the wormholes created by the Prometheus engine. "The Jrel are coming with everything they have," he told his officers on the bridge of the EFS Defiant. "And the conclave won't stop them." "Should we activate the arcs early?" asked Commander Prisha Varma. "We could evacuate a significant portion of the population." Jackson shook his head. "The arcs aren't ready yet. We need to stand and fight." He turned to the tactical officer. "Activate all orbital platforms, move the fleet into defensive formation Alpha, and deploy the special platforms." Throughout Earth orbit, defense systems came to life. What had appeared to be ordinary satellites revealed hidden weapons. The civilian sections of the Ark ships detached, leaving behind heavily armed battle platforms. In high command centers around the world, military leaders prepared for the coming battle. But there was no panic, no desperate rush. The Sentinel protocol had been designed for exactly this scenario. When the Jrel fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system, they were met with a surprising sight: human ships moving toward them in precise formations. "They're not running," said Kale's second-in-command with surprise. "They're preparing to fight." "It doesn't matter," Kale replied. "Our weapons will overwhelm them regardless of their tactics." The battle began with an exchange of long-range fire. The Jrel ships launched energy beams that could cut through most known materials. The human vessels responded with their relativistic kinetic weapons, simple but devastatingly effective. Both sides took losses in the initial exchange. 15 Jrel ships were destroyed, and 12 human vessels were disabled. But the Jrel fleet pressed forward, their superior numbers giving them confidence. As the battle moved closer to Earth, a strange thing happened. Human AIs controlling the defense systems began to predict Jrel maneuvers with uncanny accuracy. Every time Kale ordered a new formation or attack pattern, the human forces were already moving to counter it. "How are they anticipating us?" Kale demanded as another attack failed. His tactical officer checked the data. "They appear to have analyzed our historical battle records, Supreme Commander. They know our standard strategies." Kale's crystalline form darkened with anger. "Then we will do something unprecedented." With a series of quick commands, he ordered his remaining ships to push directly for Earth. ignoring losses. 50 more Jor-El vessels were destroyed in this rush, but the Crystal Vengeance and 30 other ships broke through Earth's outer defenses. "Launch the antimatter weapons," Kale ordered. "Target their major cities." The forbidden weapons deployed from the Jor-El ships streaking toward Earth's surface. On viewing screens across the galaxy, species watching the battle held their breath. Such weapons could kill billions. Then something incredible happened. Just before the weapons could reach the atmosphere, they vanished, swallowed by small, localized wormholes created by mobile Prometheus engines. The antimatter bombs disappeared from Earth's vicinity and reappeared in empty space near the remaining Jor-El fleet. The resulting explosions destroyed 20 more Jor-El ships, including several vessels near the Crystal Vengeance. Kale's flagship was damaged, its engines failing and weapon systems offline. As his ship drifted helplessly, Kale received a direct transmission. Elena Reyes appeared on his command screen, her expression serious, but not triumphant. "Supreme Commander, Kale," she said calmly, "your attack has failed. Your fleet is destroyed or disabled. You have one chance to surrender." "Surrender? To primitives?" Kale's voice was filled with rage and disbelief. "I would rather be shattered." "That's not how humans do things," Elena replied. "We're offering asylum to you and your surviving crews. Despite everything, we believe the Jor-El people have been manipulated as much as anyone by leaders seeking power." The offer stunned Kale. In Jor-El culture, defeated enemies were not shown mercy. They were destroyed or enslaved. The concept of offering asylum to a defeated commander was entirely foreign. "Why would you do this?" he asked. Elena's answer was simple. "Because we didn't abandon the table because we feared conflict. We abandoned it because we saw a better way forward, one that includes redemption for those who recognize their mistakes." For the first time in his long life, Supreme Commander Kyle was speechless. As the remaining Jor-El vessels surrendered one by one, species across the galaxy watched in amazement. Humanity had defeated one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations not through superior brutality, but through preparation, innovation, and even mercy. And on the Crystal Vengeance's bridge, Kale made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. He accepted the human offer, not out of fear, but out of a growing realization that perhaps, after thousands of years of conquest, the Jor-El Imperium had something to learn from this young species. 6 months after the failed Jor-El attack on Earth, representatives from 37 different species gathered in the central chamber of the Horizon, the largest of humanity's completed arc ships. The massive vessel hung at the edge of mapped space, its engines ready for the journey to unexplored regions of the galaxy. The chamber was impressive but very different from the Great Hall of the Galactic Conclave. Instead of crystal chandeliers and living murals, the walls were covered with actual plants, trees and flowers from Earth and compatible worlds. Natural light streamed in through large windows showing the stars outside. And in the center, instead of the black stone table of the conclave, stood a circular table made of polished wood. The material choice was symbolic. Wood came from living things that grew, died, and contributed to new life, something precious. Few alien species could produce. It represented the human philosophy that systems should grow and change, rather than remain frozen in tradition. Elena Reyes, now bearing the title of Cooperative Director, stood as the gathering quieted. She wore a simple blue uniform with a small silver emblem, a stylized image of Earth with stars surrounding it. "Thank you all for coming," she said, looking around at the diverse group. Some species looked almost human, while others were radically different, crystalline beings, floating gas clouds contained in special suits and creatures with many limbs or eyes. 6 months ago, humanity abandoned the conclave's table, Elena continued. Many thought we were rejecting diplomacy itself. The truth is simpler. We rejected a system that had become corrupted and no longer served its original purpose. On screens, around the chamber, images appeared showing the construction of more arc ships, the expansion of the Prometheus engine network, and the recovery efforts on worlds damaged during the brief conflict with the Jor-El. The Prometheus engine has revealed possibilities that change galactic politics forever, Elena explained. With this technology, we can reach parts of the galaxy no current civilization has explored. We can find new worlds, new resources, and perhaps even new forms of life. She touched the wooden table, and it lit up with a holographic map of the galaxy. Bright lines showed the possible paths created by the Prometheus engine network, hundreds of routes to unexplored regions. Humanity could have kept this technology to ourselves. We could have used it to become dominant in conclave politics. Instead, we offer a different approach. Ambassador Tulak of the Hadari stepped forward, his bright feathers catching the light. You're sharing the wormhole technology? Not freely, Elena clarified, but under a new compact with strict ethical guidelines. We invite any species who shares our values to join what we're calling the Terran Cooperative. We'll explore the unmapped regions together, establish colonies based on mutual respect, and create a community that learns from the Conclave's mistakes. Talia. Azor, the Medusan diplomat who had been the first to see the Prometheus engine, moved closer to the wooden table. And for those species that choose to remain with the Conclave, we wish them well, Elena said simply. But our path lies elsewhere. A murmur ran through the gathered representatives. Many had come out of curiosity, expecting humans to be seeking revenge against the Conclave or planning to establish themselves as a rival power. This offer of partnership was unexpected. To everyone's surprise, the ancient Orvex representative shuffled forward. The elder statesman was one of the oldest living beings in the galaxy, his species having helped found the Conclave 1,000 years earlier. My species helped create the Conclave when the galaxy was a more dangerous place, the Orvex said, his voice thin but clear. We believed in its purpose, to bring order and cooperation to chaotic space. We have watched it grow, and sadly, we have watched it decay. The elder placed a gnarled hand on the wooden table. When humans left the Conclave, many feared war would follow. Instead, you offer a new beginning. Perhaps it is time for old beings like myself to learn from the young. One by one, representatives approached the table. The Medusans were first, followed by the Trinaxians with their 6 nimble limbs. The Hadari joined with a flourish of colorful feathers. Most surprising of all was a group of Jrel, led by a small delegation of reformers. Their spokesperson was not Kale, who remained on Earth helping human scientists understand Jrel technology in exchange for his asylum, but a younger crystal being named Vexna. The Jrel have dominated through force for too long, Vexna said, her crystalline body glowing with soft light. Some of us wish to try a different path. By the meetings, and 23 species had joined the cooperative, with more requesting time to consult their governments. The wooden table was surrounded by representatives from across the galaxy, all signing the new charter. As preparations for departure began, Elena stood at the main viewport of the horizon, looking out at the stars. Admiral Jackson Chen joined her, watching as smaller ships docked with the Ark vessels. Are you sure about this? Jackson asked quietly. The Conclave still exists. They're wounded but not gone. And there are other powers in the galaxy who might see us as a threat. Elena nodded. I'm sure. Humanity tried playing by the old rules. We participated in the Conclave in good faith. When that failed, we could have chosen isolation or domination. Instead, we're choosing to build something new, Jackson finished for her. Exactly. Elena pointed to the distant stars where their wormhole would soon open. Out there, we have a chance to create a community based on our values: cooperation, innovation, and respect for differences. If it works, maybe someday the Conclave will learn from our example. In the heart of the horizon, the Prometheus engine powered up, creating a massive wormhole ahead of the assembled fleet. One by one, the Ark ships and their escorts moved toward the swirling gateway, carrying humans and their new allies toward unexplored space. Back at the Conclave, the remaining species watched the departure with mixed emotions. Some felt relief that the unpredictable humans were leaving. Others worried about what opportunities they might be missing. A few began to question traditions and rules that had remained unchanged for centuries. The great table, with its many empty seats, seemed somehow less impressive than before. Without meaning to, humanity had forced the conclave to face uncomfortable questions about its purpose and future. As the last Ark ship disappeared into the wormhole, Elena sent a final message to the conclave. It was simple but profound. We did not abandon diplomacy when we left your table. We simply decided to build a better one. Any species that shares our vision is welcome to join us when they're ready. The door remains open. The wooden table, with its empty chairs waiting to be filled, disappeared into the wormhole along with the ships. Not an ending, but a beginning. And, across the galaxy, species that had once watched in terror as humans abandoned the table now understood. Sometimes walking away is the first step toward building something better.